and rename put your name and your company just so we know where you're from. And we will give it like another minute just to have people coming in. But you have everybody from the rating room, Jenna? Yes.
So far, yes.
Okay, I'll give it another minute. To those of you who are just joining us, you popped in on our new member meet and greet, which is always a good time. We have our new members come in and meet old members and board members and discuss what they're looking to get out of IFMA and what position they're in, and in general, just how life is treating them. So I know we had 30 people register for today. It looks like we have 14, 12, 16, 17, 18, 19.
19 so far.
Okay. Give it one more minute and then the late people can come in. Okay, it's 12:02. I'm going to start. I am going to introduce today's speaker. Sorry about that. Give me 1 second. I'm so glad Janessa's not on right now. She would kill me. So good morning, or good afternoon as it is now. I'm Joy Shapiro, IFMA's Boston president. On behalf of the board, the committee chairs, and the volunteers who are orchestrating today's program, I'd like to thank you for joining us. I want to thank all of those who have joined us for this morning's meet and greet. Some of them are still here, some of them left, but these are really good opportunities for the new and existing members to learn about each other and the chapter. So keep an eye out for those in the future. And if you want to join, please do. It's great to have our seasoned members meet with our new ones. And for our next pop-up event live in April, which should be coming out probably a week before the date. And we look forward to seeing everyone there as well. So let's get started. We are so thankful to welcome Dr. Dean Kashawagi to today's program, and I hope I pronounced that right. You can read his entire bio on our website, but here are some impressive highlights. So he is a PhD, IFMA Fellow, a Fulbright Scholar, and an innovator, a researcher of cutting-edge technology in the areas of project management, risk management, procurement, and performance information. We're very lucky to have him here today. He is the most prolific researcher at the Dell E. Webb School of Construction at Arizona State University, which has an $18 million worth of research funded solely from the private sector. He is also the author of Measurement Theory, Measurement Theory would be weird. And he is responsible for the licensing of best value approach intellectual property at Arizona State University, which is the most licensed IP at ASU in the history of ASU with 64 licenses. Dr. Kashawagi's research area is technology made for the future, and we can't wait to hear all about it. So thank you for joining us, Dr. Kashawagi, and I turn the floor over to you.
Joy, can you allow us to share screen as well?
Yes. Please hold. Does anyone know how to do that?
Yeah, so Jenna, if you just go to share
Make
screen,
co-host,
you can allow all participants to share screen.
Okay. I'm sorry, please hold. Can you tell I've never done this before?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Does that work?
Oh, yeah. Yes, it did, because I was able to share. So you should
Wonderful.
be able to, Dr. Dean, now. Thank you.
1 second, we're just setting this up for him. Okay.
That is good. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Can you hear me?
Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, you can freely just turn on your mic and speak whenever you want to speak here. Okay, we're going to be very informal. The message is rather simple. Everyone knows that automation is coming. The question is, why and how do we implement automation? Well, I'm a very simple guy, and I've been working for so long, I've begun to realize the only way that I'll be getting, quote, more value for everyone is to decrease my workload and increase my responsibility. Decrease workload and increase responsibility. Well, this has to work simply because if it doesn't work, then I need to really retire. Because I'll be swamped and I'll be so stressed. And my family won't like me. So I have to find a way that I can know less, but actually do more. Believe me, I'm a PhD. I've been teaching research and graduate students for 25 years. More study is not the answer. And I don't know why I'm speaking to myself only. Everybody wants to like get more study and have more information. And that's what they think the future is. I disagree. I want to study less and know more. I want to have more responsibility, but less work. This smacks of something called automation. Now, why would anybody listen to me? Because this sounds kind of crazy. It's because by using a more simplified method of communication, I can reduce FM costs by 30%, minimize change orders to less than 1%, and have high customer satisfaction. That's the only reason anybody would want to listen to me. Remember, more responsibility, bigger impact, more value, but do less. For some reason, the human nature of people kind of stops them from listening to me. So let's see how you all do. Automation, everybody sees it coming. Somehow, our stress is related to thinking. So if I want to minimize my stress, I have to minimize my thinking. And the only reason we think is to make decisions. So thinking and decision-making has to go down to nothing. Then, I don't want to know more technical details. They're coming too quickly. And what you hear may not be accurate. I want to let the expert do the thinking and decision-making on technical matters. So therefore, I need a way to identify and utilize expertise. I found out through 30 years of research that if somebody listened to me, that they could do 10 times the amount of work. 10 times. This is where it all starts. Where does the problem arise? Why are we caught in this? Keep doing more, have to know more, have to get more certifications, etc. Where does it start? Well, it starts off this simple chart called the industry structure chart. And so you shouldn't have to think very much about this. And if I lose you, you need to stop me, right? Just turn on your microphone and stop me. We're looking at performance and competition. And as an FM, I want high competition because I want to identify high performance. That's what I want to do. But what's the traditional model? The traditional model, if this is the FM representing a client and this is the vendor, we always have to do this to the vendor, which means we have to know more about what the vendor does than the vendor themselves. That's the only way you can tell the vendor what to do. Now, those of you who are really quick realize that when you came into FM, you knew nothing. And the only way you survived and got better is we found experts that we didn't have to do this with. But yet, over 90% of the community will do this. Now, why do they do this? Because the client thinks that they're the expert. It's not the vendor, it's the client. The client says, these are the assumptions I'm going to make in the price-based market. So we're going to find the lowest price, and this is how we do it. We assume that all the vendors are the same. Bad assumption. We also assume that in a vendor's company, all the project managers are the same. Wow. Which anybody who belongs to an organization knows that's flat out inaccurate. Then we assume that all the project managers, if we just do this clearly enough, what does clearly mean? I don't know yet. To this day, after 40 years, I don't know what clearly explaining something means, that all the PMs could understand us. Wow. I can't believe somebody making those assumptions. So basically, but if they do believe that, then if everybody's the same and all the PMs are the same and everybody understands, what we're doing now in the price-based marketplace is we're just trying to get the vendors to give us the lowest what? Price. And somehow we're thinking in our head, I got a really good deal. I got the lowest price. But then because of we got what we got, we actually now have to manage, direct, and control most vendors. Wow. This is not only an FM problem. This is going on in the entire supply chain. In every culture, in every country, this is going on. Wow. So who's actually responsible for all the levels of services of FM services? We are. And many people think that that's the FM's job. He's responsible for the quality of the FM services. That's not too smart. And it's not smart because then stress level goes up. The amount of work we have to do goes up. It's just not logical. Now, there's another way of thinking. And that is, if we can identify and utilize expertise. What does identify and utilize expertise? Well, it's simply find an expert and let him do his job. Do we have to trust him? Absolutely not. I never trust anybody. They have to prove that they're an expert, they can do the job, and they have to tell me in a very simple way how they're mitigating risk, because risk is what the FM is really worried about. If something goes wrong, something goes bad. How are they mitigating risk? And that is very similar. If we can identify and utilize the expert, if we don't have to do a lot to do that, if we don't have to know a lot, my goodness, that sounds just like automation because I don't have to do anything. Now, the main problem with this whole approach is a lot of FMs feel like, well, if they're not doing anything, then why would anybody pay them? Well, they pay you to increase value by lowering costs. They pay you because somehow you can find the expert, and the expert is accountable, and the expert does a higher level of service. Now, the top and the bottom quadrant, little quiz here. Who thinks that the bottom costs more. In other words, if you hire somebody doing what the traditional FMs do, right, which is tell them what to do and then pick the lowest costs. How many of you buy into the idea that you'll be paying more there than you would hiring an expert? Get to your chat boxes. Say, I agree, right? We're going to pay more if we hire non-experts. Ah, see, Andrew says I will pay for the experts. Okay, now this is really interesting, right? If we hire experts, are we going to pay more? The answer is no, it's never happened. If somebody knows what they're doing, it should be cheaper, not more expensive. But even the vendors don't understand that. So everybody's saying, I'm an expert, so you need to pay me more. That's total garbage. Experts can see, experts can mitigate risk. And because they can see and mitigate risk, they are cheaper. And so 30 years of research testing tells us that the experts are cheaper, tells us that the level of service is better. So is this the biggest secret in the FM community? Let's keep taking a look at this. How long have we been doing this? We've been doing this longer than anyone else. And people ask me, well, Dr. Dean, how do you know this and nobody else knows this? Because we're old. We've been around in the industry for 35 plus years. And we've seen people try to propose the same thing in cycles. And the only reason they don't know is they haven't been around long enough. They don't realize that people in the cycle before them was trying to do the same thing. They're doing the same thing, and the same thing's going to happen. They're going to pay more and get poor quality service. And people tell me, well, that can't be true because nobody wants to do that. It's not what people want to do. It's what people's nature will force them to do because they want so much to show that they have value. And this is my mentor, right? How many people who have any type of expertise will stand up in front of you and say that their spouse taught them everything they knew, right? Oh, was my wife an FM? Was she an engineer? No. My wife got her education in primary education. She didn't know anything about engineering. But my goodness, did she teach me the biggest lesson of my life. Right? What she taught me was, I thought that because we were like so much in love, that she would help me do anything I wanted to do. It took me 15 years to figure out that that just wasn't going to happen. I thought I could influence her. I thought I could use all my relationship knowledge to change her way of thinking, change her nature. And she taught me, oh my goodness, Dean, where were you educated? Right? Where did you, oh, shoots, engineering school, up, first problem. That's my first problem. Came out of the engineering school, right? Oh, where they taught me that I had so much expertise. Oh my goodness. Nope. And if she didn't educate me well enough, here came the kids. And the kids taught me something that I'll never forget. when the oldest was 19. I asked him, son, what do you want to do in your life? What do you really like doing? And he looked at me and there was nothing there. And I realized that I had done this too much. All my culture had told me to do this. My quote, professional practice said to do this. No, when you're talking to somebody and you say, well, what do you suggest? And they look at you like, what? That's not an optimal situation. And basically, I had to change my whole culture and how I was raising my family because of what these kids taught me. The first thing the kids taught me was that I was a problem and I needed rules to stop me from being the problem. Me, the father, was the problem. And I was the problem because I did this too much. And they said, and Dad, not only is that a problem, but when you talk, you make us think. And when you make us think, it goes in one ear, doesn't stay in the middle, immediately comes out of the other ear. Wow. What were they telling me? They were telling me that if I tried to make someone else think, this was the worst thing that can ever happen because all my efforts in passing my great knowledge to another party was wasted. Wow. So they said, Dad, minimize your communicating, your speaking, and make it simple. I struggled with this. How do I make it simple? I found out how to make it simple. If I'm talking to anybody in the supply chain, anybody who's a friend of mine, anybody in my own organization, I realize simple means that they don't have to think. Okay, so let's address this point. If I have a water bottle here in my hand and I'm going to run 100 tests of releasing this water bottle, how many of you can actually, before I run the 100 tests, tell me what's going to happen when I release the water bottle? Yeah, just on your chat box, say yes. Can you tell me what's going to happen before I run the first test?
Literally like just emptying out the water bottle or taking the cover off so it falls.
No, wait a minute. Whoa. I'm going to release this and let it go.
Drop it. It'll fall. Gravity.
Okay, it's going to fall. Did you have to think about this?
No.
You didn't have to think about it because you're an expert in the law of gravity. This is simple to you, which means it's simple because you know what's going to happen before it happens, or you can see into the future. When you can see into the future, you don't have to think about it. Now, here's the $1 million question. If an expert in their area of expertise sees something, do they have to think more about it or think less about it than a non-expert? Either hit your microphone or tell me, do they have to think more or less? It's less. You all got the answer, which means when somebody is tasked by us or is called by us, or we ask them, we have a problem and can you respond to us? The simplest way of knowing if they're an expert or not is they don't think. In other words, If I find an expert, do I have to give them more information or less information about what my problem is and what I need done? More information or less information? Hit your chat boxes. Yes, less. But because of our paradigm, our human nature, the way we teach people and communicate with people, we're thinking we have to give them more information. In actuality, it's exactly the opposite. Why? Because if they're an expert, they can see it simply. They do not have to think about it, and they can actually see into the future. They can actually see from the beginning of the conditions of why you have a problem and what's going to be the end of these conditions, because they can see. They're an expert. And my kids had to teach me this. They said, Dad, you cannot take your expertise and communicate this to us if you make us think we're just going to dump all that knowledge, because you have no way to effectively communicate ideas from your experiences, put it in our heads so we can use it. There's no way to do this. Oh my goodness. This goes against everything they taught me in engineering school and engineering management. And it matches the last 40 years of my experience, which means if I have to increase this, if I have to give more information, what am I doing with my time? I'm wasting it, because I'm going to draw to myself non-experts who, quote, may need that information, but they probably won't read that all, but they can't see. And it's going to cause me a problem. And my kids taught me this. And it was the same lesson that my wife was teaching me. Is, Dean, you don't need to talk. Oh my goodness. And I can tell you, because I've had enough kids, the best way to learn this idea, if you're still young enough, is have more kids. All right. And try to control the kids. Oh, great. If you're older and you had teenagers, right? You already have some experience with trying to influence, pass information, and control your kids, right? How well does that work? Doesn't work at all. But for some reason, our nature thinks that that's our value, is to somehow take our knowledge and experience and try to pass it to somebody else. I now know, right? The first thing that happens when you have more kids is they expand. Yeah, very quickly you have an ecosystem, right? You just have one child or two children. They'll have one child or two children, and you'll find out that, you don't have that big ecosystem. But when you had 8 kids and 6 of them got married and are trying to have kids, I found out this year we're going to have 3 grandkids this year alone. And you begin having an ecosystem. And then, as the head honcho of this ecosystem, do you think I am going to talk more or talk less to make everyone happy? What's the answer, guys? Yes, it's the same answer. Now, what's amazing about this? Well, what's amazing is we found out with this new approach of talking less and telling fewer people what to do, but identifying and utilizing expertise, the metrics are dominant. Cheaper, better value, fewer change orders, less problems. Amazing. Yeah. And we have had huge tests, right? Where we tested this out. And the first major test that really taught us this, we had more, but that dominantly taught us this is when we went into the Netherlands and they needed to do about $1 billion worth of infrastructure work. But they needed to do it in 3 to 5 years when normally with all the supply chain collaboration and communication, it would take 12 years. And politically, they just mandated the organization. You better do it in 3 to 5 years, or we're going to come down and change your job descriptions and change what you do because you aren't doing anything. They had heard about me, they watched me, they said, wow, we need to do this quickly, which means we need to do this less. Well, they came and we ran the tests. The results were unbelievable. What they found out is they did everything faster. They did less of this. The projects got done. The quality went up. And this became the way they started procuring in the Netherlands. Yeah, I mean, they didn't believe that it was that good. And we've been running tests all the time. So one of the bureaucracies we worked with was the US Army Medical Command. And over 5 years, they wanted to do about $1 billion worth of work at 26 different sites. And we figured out how to make this simple, right? How do you make this simple? You identify and utilize expertise, or you ask the experts to tell you before they do anything exactly what they're going to do. Wow. If you look at the risk that was caused, and you look at the contractors who's the vendors, right? Not representing really the client, but the vendors, look at the amount of risk that they caused. Their change order rate was at 0%. This is on $1 billion worth of modification work, which is really tough work because everybody and their uncle wants to tell you what to do. Then we go into the state of Minnesota, and over 6 years, we do a ton of projects, right? What's the important thing here? Let's go back to the contractor. We want contractors who don't create risk or don't give us change orders. What do we see here? We don't see any change orders. We don't see any risk caused by contract. What's going on here, right? Am I a magic man? No, it's a totally different approach. Now, so what is this approach? Let's take an area that you don't have a lot of expertise in, and I didn't have any. I wanted to procure a financial platform for the organization. So what did I do? Well, I told myself, number one, because I know nothing about it, I better make it simple. What is simple? Simple is with all the stakeholders. The first thing is they have to all observe what I observe. So in using metrics, right? This is a water bottle. Everybody in the room has to observe that I'm holding one water bottle. If everybody observes that it's one water bottle, right? They can all observe it. The only other requirement is that it's countable. Now you can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Going to the next level, we can say, we have $1 million for this project. Well, I'm not going to count all the $1 million, but somebody said it's $1 million, right? I can understand because I can count that $1 million is $1 million. Wow. I can do anything like this? So what we did was we just explained what the job was in simple metrics. Of course, we had vendors say, Dr. Dean, what are you doing? This is not enough information. And then I would say, whoa, that's interesting. You need more information? And they said, of course we need more information. We need more time. We need more details. Immediately, because this philosophy, this new philosophy was stuck in my head, I said, you know, guys, I don't think you should bid on this job. You should wait for the next one. And the true experts were going, because they knew what the job was. They knew how to do this thing from beginning to end. And so then the vendors came in and the vendors said, this was the requirement. Vendors, according to my size of project, according to my characteristics of my project, prove to me that you have the capability to do this kind of project. And the vendor would come in and says, well, we've done 2 projects that are very similar to this. And we know they're similar because look at the metrics, they're close. Say, oh, very good. Yeah, we think maybe you can do this project, but yet you need to give me some performance metrics that says what? What was your on time, cost deviation, and customer satisfaction? So they gave it to us and go, oh my goodness, this is good. I have an expert. Because I'm an expert now, I've identified the expert, but before I hire you, I'm going to make sure that you didn't make these numbers up. So I'm going to verify where that information came from. Then I'm going to have you, the expert, go from the beginning of the project to the end, show me that you have a detailed schedule tied in with cost, and off that detailed time and cost schedule, you can simplify that so everybody who doesn't understand your area of expertise, they can follow along and know when you're on time and on budget. And also, they can know when you're not on time and on budget, and you have a simple way to explain that to them. Oh, only an expert can do this. If you're not an expert, you can't do this, right? You go, wait a minute. He wants me to what? See into the future. My goodness, we can't do this. This is not in our capability. I said, nope, nope. An expert can see the future. Wow. Here comes the pandemic, rolls in. Everybody's using virtual platforms. Everybody now has to figure out how to minimize the need to tell somebody what to do. And we find out that what we've been proposing for over 30 years, it has the same characteristics of automation. Oh my goodness. And it's everywhere. People never thought that it would lead to automation, because when it's automated, you don't have to do this at all. The computer does it all. And think about this. Automation increases the value of expertise, makes it simpler, and lets them do more. They have to think less, remember less. And we can see this. It minimizes the thinking and decision-making and minimizes the risk at the same time. And less effort. Wow. People who thought they had value because they were thinking now can see that the thinking can be done by a board. Wow. If you travel, we're starting to see automated cars. Anything that can be taken over by an information system or computers is done. Even risky activities that we never, quote, would trust people to put it on an automated system, it's being done. Yeah, we thought that if we could get very cheap labor, we could compete with automation. Can't be done. The number one user of robotics, automation, and information systems is not China. They have replaced the need for human cognitive thinking. Not completely. But if people are thinking the right way, they can do 10 times the amount of work. This has been verified by just counting the numbers of the number of people who are needed in a factory or any other supply chain. So think about this. If it requires pre-planning, prioritization of tasks, if we need to minimize deviations, if we need it faster, and we need fewer mistakes or less risk, guess what? This is what automation is all about. And as things get automated and they get done quicker, it can't be totally automated. We always need people with the automation who are implementing and using the automation. And these people's value. And they're doing this with everything, whether it be a restaurant, whether it be in tracking clients, so we know exactly what clients want. So it minimizes the need to think when they come. As soon as they punch in their name, bang, all their characteristics come up. Did we know this before? Or is this something new? Well, I propose that back at the turn of the year 2000, the Dutch were actually running a little test. They wanted to know what's the value of a procurement officer if they had 20 years experience, right? All that corporate knowledge that they had. So they ran a simple test. They had all this data. They said, well, why don't we get some college students, have them build us a computer model? Very simplistic. So in order to actually build a computer model, they had to like only take the most critical information and throw everything else away, put that into the computer. And then they said, and we want to know if somebody didn't have any experience, how well would they do? So here they have this test and they're running all three. They're running a person with 20 years experience. They're running a simple computer model that's created on very little information. And they're running a test with people who know nothing. Yeah, this is at the year 2000, 2001, 2002, okay? This is the result. Of course, no one got a perfect score, but the computer scored the best. What was unbelievable is the college students who were freshmen who didn't know anything scored better than the people with 20 years experience. Oh my goodness. Wow. Wow. They relied too much on experience, on their thinking and decision-making, on their gut feelings. Oh my goodness. Well, I've seen this. I jump into a lift in Los Angeles and he comes right away. I have all his information. I say hello, he says hello. 20 minutes later, he drops me off. I realized every step along the way, I knew exactly where he was taking me. I even knew if he was obeying the speed limits. And when he dropped us off, I said, thank you. And he said, you're welcome. And off he went. And I asked my wife, what nationality was this fellow? Was he like Malaysian, or was he Filipino, or was he Korean? Or my wife said he didn't talk. Get it? He didn't talk. And he got the job done. Oh my goodness. Wow. But this stuff is going on all over the place. Look, this is a receipt, right? I took one of the visionaries. I went to Hawaii. We went into a pancake shop and we had breakfast, and the bill came. And the bill says right on it, how much do you want to tip? Do you want to tip 15%, 18%, 20%? How much do you want to tip? If you want to tip 15%, there is the number that you write in the tip line, and there's the total number that you write in the total line. So is the value of my great math skills going up or down now as the automation creeps in? Up or down? The value of my math skills. I'm an engineer. I know calculus. Wow. I looked at that and I said, my goodness, I need to do less. I need to know less. I need to just make sure that I'm happy, that the quality and the value I'm producing goes up. What are experts? Simple. They can tell the difference. They can tell the difference between what they did on the previous project and what they're going to do for you. They can tell the difference of why they're better and they're experts, and most of the people in their organization are not experts. They can tell you the difference between what they're going to do differently on your job than they did on their past job because they saw problems. They can tell you the difference, and the difference is always expressed in simple metrics. They can tell the difference. Next thing they can do, they can see into the future. They can go from the beginning of your project to the end. They can see it. They can tell you what's going to happen before it happens. And the third thing they can do, they can make it simple because they realize you're not an expert. This is what an expert is. If they can't do that, I have to tell you, they're not experts. They're marketing people. They're people who can't do the job well. They're not experts. They're going to charge you more. They're just not experts. All we're trying to get them to do is to see into the future. And an expert can do this without even blinking an eye, without doing the project. They can tell you this before they do it. Yes, they look at where they have to go. They'll simplify it. They'll tell you the deliverable is in simple terms, right? Of how fast you get something, how satisfied you are, how many of these things they're going to provide. And if they lack any information, because you may not have the information, they'll tell you, based on our expertise and the projects we've done before, this is what it should be. So they utilize their expertise. And if there are people who they don't control, and they know they don't control them, these are the people who bring them risk. They will have a risk management plan there. They'll tell you, we'll tell everyone from the very beginning when we see risk. We'll tell you what you need to do. For an expert, the only thing they care about is what they have to get done that they don't have control over. That is what causes risk. It's like one guy here has a bigger view of the world, and he's looking around this whole world. He sees much more. He doesn't have to go to every space in this environment. Why? Because he's an expert. He can see it for the first time and tell you exactly what it is. But then the little guy, he can't see that far. The difference between the expert and the non-expert, the expert can see it from beginning to end. The expert can make it simple. The expert can mitigate risk because they can see. The non-expert, he can only see like for 2 weeks. So the experts need at the beginning, they can put a non-expert on the project. And if that non-expert has to think, they tell them, stop it, do not think, go right to the expert. Expert will tell you exactly what to do. What do they do? From the very beginning, they make it simple. All people who are on the client side want to know is dollars, right? What's happening with our dollars? Time. What's happening with the time of this project? Dollars and time. And the expert will have a simplified milestone schedule. And when it deviates, he'll quickly identify the difference. They'll identify it as risk. They'll tell you exactly why it happened. And they won't wait till that risk happens. In the very beginning of the project, they'll say, we're worried about this. We kind of told this stakeholder what to do, but this stakeholder seemed like they were kind of confused. So we know they didn't understand. As simple as we made it, so we're telling you right now, these things are going to cause risk, and we'll continue to tell this so that when the risk actually happens, everybody knows who it is that's causing the risk, what the value of that risk is, and what the time deviation will be. Simple. If we can identify and utilize expertise, the cost will go down, the time will be on time, and the value will go up. And I just listed a bunch of past projects that I kind of remember in the FM area, right? And all I wanted to show you was it always saved money. It always was like on time, and it was spectacular. Because you were in Boston, I had to go back, right? We actually ran a test at Harvard. And it went so well. We won the Innovation of the Year award. Unbelievable. They couldn't believe how we did it so quickly. High quality. But you can see all the other tests here. And we have even more tests, right? We have 2,000 runs. In my mind, at least 100 tests, which I could just go and show you, right? Where FMs did something and they utilized this system and they got outstanding results. Oh my goodness. In conclusion, this is the implementation of automation. It has the same characteristics of automation. It's going to decrease your cost. It's going to increase your responsibilities because you can do so many more projects and never have them go bad. And it's made simple. So you can explain to anybody's C-suite exactly why you did it, how you did it, and how you're utilizing expertise. Was that simple enough? What do y'all think? Oh, we're almost right on time, but we started 10 minutes late, but we're right on time. So does anybody have questions here?
This is Andrew. First, I would say great job and good job with the storytelling too to keep us engaged. I guess
Thank
how, yeah, how the metrics make total sense. I guess what's the secret sauce? I guess with the metrics or the formula.
Okay. I didn't have time to go through the actual process that you use, but if you will contact Joseph, he will give you a paper on this. And we just wrote a paper on this because the people in Sweden wanted to know where it was run, and they want to know some of the details of the runs. And so if you communicate with Joseph and just give him your email address for the details on this, he can get a hold of that paper, which it's still in draft format, but it has all the metrics in it.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you.
Oh, not a problem. But I can tell you, the whole thing is simple. All right, very simple. Okay, next question.
There's one more. It's Andrew again. Did I hear correctly? Did you say to have more kids?
I think the more kids you have, the brighter you'll be, which goes against all logic. People said, you know, the first question you hear or comment you hear when you tell them how many kids you have, they go, don't they know what causes that? Wow. How blind can people be?
No,
Yes.
it's
Of course we know what causes it,
mhm.
but it brings us an understanding of reality, right? Of accurate concepts. So
Oh, very good. Thank you.
not a problem. Anybody else with a question?
How many kids do you actually have? I was trying to count them in the picture, but it went by too quick.
We had 8 kids,
Oh, my goodness.
6
gracious.
boys and 2 girls.
Oh, my goodness. God bless
Believe it
you.
or not, we went around the world numerous times with the kids. Yeah, it was quite an experience.
Wow. And 3 grandkids this year.
Yes, so it's going to be, we currently have 16. So by the end of the year, it's going to be 19.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Wow.
I have a hard
Wow.
time driving to the Cape with 2 kids.
I think that's the talk we need. How to have 8 kids and be a PhD. My goodness, you have 8 times the kids I do. That's a lot of kids.
And you'd be amazed. I mean, there's a book that Joseph has, and it explains what I went through. It explained how I went in the Air Force, and I was running these tests, but I wanted to find true performance information, but they wanted to follow their logic and their decision making and how we had a battle over this, and they tried to kick me out of the Air Force after I did some stunning work. And then how they told me I would never teach another Air Force captain in the Air Force. And how 4 or 5 years later, I ended up back getting my PhD. And they funded that PhD totally. And I ended up being a PhD. But that's only the beginning. I've gone into countries, I've gone into state systems in the United States and actually battled some bureaucrats, you know, which was amazing. It's a lot of risk. And I was started as a very poor person, and somehow I ended up being like somebody who didn't need money. You know, so it's learning about the reality of why we are who we are. And I can tell you today that I am the happiest that I've ever been, the most relaxed. And I think I can do this for another 10, maybe 15 years. So thank you very much for having me on. And
Thank
if
you
you
so
want me
much.
back,
I want you back.
either in person or another virtual, just ask Joe. I
We'd love
actually work
to.
for Joe now,
Okay.
even though he's 40 years younger than me.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Take
Thank
care.
you so much. Thank you for
Thank you
everybody
so
who joined
much.
us.
Have a
great
good day.
afternoon.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Everyone. Very nice
You are welcome.
presentation. Thank you.